You see him on the news.
CNN.com contributor Dean Obeidallah. So, Dean,
watch him at comedy clubs.
When I say Mecca, do you think of a holy place or an urban clothing line?
Read his articles, and you hear him on the radio. The Dean Obeidallah Show is on live right here on SiriusXM Progress, channel 127.
And welcome to the Dean Obeidallah Show, brothers and sisters. Wednesday, November 18th. I'm Dean Obeidallah, here to be your MBFF. I hope you're having a good day. Speaking of days, 48 left to the most important Senate elections of our lives. Let me ask you this. Do you want to end Mitch McConnell's reign as Senate Majority Leader? Well, you got your shot. 48 days. We got to help John Ossoff and Reverend Warnock. John actually is going to be on next week. He was going to be on tomorrow, but obviously campaign schedules changed, but he was on several times during the normal campaign cycle. Still getting Reverend Warnock on. We're going to have elected officials and Democratic leaders from Georgia each week, at least one, to come on to talk about the campaign, what's going on, and how you can help. 63 days until Donald Trump is gone. That's really good. Now, yesterday we talked about Lindsey Graham and his efforts with the Trump coup in Georgia, asking the Secretary of State to throw out legally cast ballots. And today, another person in the office of the Secretary of State was on the phone, Gabriel Sterling. And if you watch any of the press conferences, he's there always with the Secretary of State, Raffensperger. And I want to play a clip from Morning Joe. You'll first hear Mika, and then you'll hear the voice of Gabriel Sterling talking about he was on the phone, and Lindsey Graham asked point blank to throw out validly cast ballots to help Donald Trump win this election. Here's clip number one.
Far more questions than answers regarding that phone call between Lindsey Graham and Georgia's Republican Secretary of State. It turns out there was a witness to the call. A top election official to Secretary Brad Raffensperger was also on the call and agreed it sounded like the South Carolina senator was suggesting throwing out absentee ballots.
What I heard was basically discussions about absentee ballots, and if there was a percentage of signatures that weren't really truly matching, is there some point where you get to where you could say, if somebody went to a courtroom, could say, we'll throw out all these ballots because we have no way of knowing because the ballots are separated. And that was partially what was going on. I could see how Senator Graham viewed it one way and Secretary Raffensperger viewed it one way. But, our job in this state is to follow the law and follow the process. And that's what we continue to do.
When Graham was asked about the call yesterday, he said it was ridiculous. He asked Georgia officials to throw out ballots. He then said he talked to secretaries of states in Arizona and Nevada about their elections as well. Only that never happened. Both came out and said they never spoke with the senator. Eventually,
so Lindsey,
good Lord, this is bad.
So Lindsey was actually lying to try to cover his tracks after he had been accused by a Republican Secretary of State of trying to get him to throw out legal ballots.
Folks, if Lindsey Graham is not criminally investigated, I don't mean prosecuted, I mean investigated, then we should just throw out all of the election laws. Forget it. We should not have any election fraud laws. If you're going to have a U.S. Senator call up a state, the Secretary of State, and urge him to throw out legally cast ballots to help Donald Trump win, and that person won't be investigated at least, then nothing matters. Then get rid of all the election laws. Let's make it whoever cheats the best, because this is insane. You've had two people in the office now, Raffensperger and Sterling, say Lindsey Graham asked about throwing out legally cast ballots. And I'm not saying all the evidence is there for a crime, but I'm telling you this certainly is a good faith basis for an investigation into further. See, what else was Lindsey Graham doing? We only know about this because Brad Raffensperger, the Secretary of State, came forward. What other Republicans has Lindsey Graham talked to? And perhaps start subpoenaing other Republicans, and you find out under oath, they might say Lindsey Graham said to do this and that, and other Republicans told me to throw out ballots. Let's find out. We can't allow this to go on. This is what we're seeing, and I know people disagreed, because the word coup conjures up violence. And yes, when I looked at the dictionary definition today, and I can't help but do that, I'll go to the dictionary and say, well, what does the word actually mean? It does often mean violence. It's essentially a sudden or violent grabbing of power or overthrow of people in power. So yeah, violence is connected with it. But in this case, then it would be a soft coup. There's not violence. They're using illegal means, or they're using legal means on some level. But look, I want to touch on COVID for a second. Then I want to get to the bigger issue about what Trump is doing here and where we're going with this, and why I still hold to the belief that this is an attempted coup. And I'd rather be wrong. I would rather you criticize me when Joe Biden's sworn in on January 20th than us not understand what is going on, what Trump's real endgame is, and what can we do. And when I say we, I mean all of us, and the Democratic members of Congress I have on, and my contacts in the media. What can we be doing to amplify to our fellow Americans that this is a coup? It is a soft coup. It's not a military coup. It is to overthrow an illegal election. Now, first on COVID, we have to touch on this. We just crossed over minutes ago. 250,000 of our fellow Americans have died since March from COVID. 250,000 Americans have died, and Trump doesn't care. He doesn't care at all. Yesterday, 1,583 Americans died from coronavirus. That's 1,500 families that are mourning a loved one now. And Trump doesn't care. He's made this worse. The death toll that Donald Trump Jr. says is nothing before the election. Remember, it's nothing. It's up 38% in the last 2 weeks. We have an average now of 158,000 cases of COVID a day. That is up 79% over the last 2 weeks. Right now, there are 76,000 Americans in the hospital from COVID. This is a massive jump of 48% of hospitalizations in the last 2 weeks. Just an hour ago in New York, they said the schools will be closed tomorrow because of COVID and for the near term. This is exploding around the country. And Donald Trump's misinformation on COVID is intertwined with his misinformation on the election. They're part and parcel of the same. Remember, Donald Trump told his supporters over a year ago, this is the standard for the truth. Here is clip number 3, Matt, please.
It's all working out. And just remember, what you're seeing and what you're reading is not what's happening.
What you're seeing and what you're reading is not what's happening. Just believe Donald Trump. Just believe him on COVID. Just believe him on this election. Believe him on everything. And sadly enough, polls show more Republicans are believing him on the lies about the election. But going to COVID, let's say for COVID for a second, because this is life-threatening. Here, do you want to know, and you may have seen this story, but I find it just jaw-dropping, how much Donald Trump has brainwashed his base? A nurse in South Dakota went public with saying, in this conservative state, she's had patients who are fighting for their life. They're on a ventilator or about to go on a ventilator. They're dying, and they're angry, yelling at the nurses, saying, this can't be COVID. COVID is a hoax. I'll read her exact words. She said, the patients that stick out are those who still don't believe the virus is real. The ones who scream at you for a magic medicine and that Joe Biden's going to ruin the USA. They call you names and ask you why you have to wear all that stuff because they don't have COVID because it's not real. That's their exact words. It's not real. She writes, their dying breaths are literally find out what is wrong with me. And she said, when you tell them it's COVID, they say, no, that can't be it. Because Trump has convinced them that COVID doesn't exist, and they're literally dying from it. And their dying breath is, you're lying to me. What do I really have? This is where we are. This is far beyond anything we've ever seen in our country. This is far, and we'll talk about critical thinking skills later in the show maybe or another day, because that's part of the antidote. But this is off the charts garbage. This is life-threatening. People are dying because of Trump's lies. Glenn Kirshner's on tomorrow, and we'll continue to make the case in the trial of Donald Trump for murder. And he's lied to them from the beginning, telling them what you're seeing and what you're reading is not true. Just believe me. From his campaign, from his inaugural audience size, right through everything, to just weeks ago, right before Election Day, he's out there, listen to his supporters cheering, him telling them, COVID, COVID, COVID. It's a media hoax, a hype, event. It's no one's going to cover it after Election Day, November 4th. Listen, clip number 4, please.
They're doing that final test, and it's coming. They prolong the pandemic. That's all I hear about now. That's all I hear. Turn on television. Right? COVID, 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 COVID. A plane goes down. 500 people dead. They don't talk about it. COVID, 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 COVID. By the way, on November 4th, you won't hear about it anymore. It's true. COVID!
Donald Trump told the crowd that cheered there because they cheered. You won't hear about it because it's a hoax. It's a media hyped up event. It's not real. 250,000 Americans are dead on this man's watch. He should be brought before The Hague for crimes against humanity. This is not a good faith mistake. This is intentional lies to the people of America. And again, going back to what I said about Lindsey Graham, if you're not going to hold Donald Trump accountable for this, then let's not have laws. Let's make our president a king. They can kill their own people like Saddam Hussein gassed his own people, and they can get away with it. That's where we're going. This is really, it's almost challenging for me to take this in intellectually because none of it makes sense. That you had a president lie to the people over and over, even just weeks ago before Election Day, saying they're going to stop covering it after Election Day, knowing that was a lie. And then now, after the election, after he lost, the lies continue. And this one is an attack on our democracy. This is a coup. And where you're seeing it, and there are two paths to this, to what Trump is doing. And I think too many people are taking solace or joy in the fact, in the legal path, he's failing. There's the legal path and there's the political path. The legal path, Donald Trump is failing. Case after case after case are being thrown out. Rudy Giuliani said yesterday in front of a federal judge, this case is not about fraud. In pleadings today in Bucks County, Trump's own lawyers put in writing, this case is not about fraud. And the reason they're doing that is because they will be disbarred if they lie. So legally they're losing. But that's not where this battle is really being played out. This battle, the real battlefield, is not a courtroom because Trump supporters are not following what's going on in the federal district court, in the Western District of Michigan, and in the Eastern District of Pennsylvania. They're following Fox News and Newsmax and OAN, which is just using the word over and over as Trump is fraud, 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 fraud. So forget the legal cases, folks. Legally, Trump's got not a shot. Politically, though, he does have a path, and that's where the coup is. And again, I'd rather be accused later of being hyperbolic and over the top than not preparing for this battle that is here brewing. In fact, today, and last night, the Wayne County Canvassing Board, unprecedented. It's never happened. The Republicans on the board, the two, refused to certify the elections in Wayne County. That was the one that Donald Trump had attacked. That's where Detroit is. Had never happened before. About an hour later, they reversed their course after a massive backlash. But in between that, the GOP of the state had a press release ready to go, and they applauded these two members of the board. And Donald Trump tweeted how brave they were. This was all from the Trump campaign. Something happened that hour to make them rethink this and understand what they were doing is putting Trump over America. So now they certified that in Michigan. That was part of the coup. They lost there on that. But today, Trump's lawyers filed a lawsuit in federal court to still stop the certification. And I want to read a little of the brief submitted by the Secretary of State, and the DNC is involved in this as a party, as an intervener, in what Donald Trump's end game really is, folks. And this is not legal, this is political. It is a coup. Because the brief starts out, the plaintiffs, being Trump, do not expect to win the lawsuit. Having lost the state of Michigan by more than 146,000 votes, no recount, no audit, no judicial review could possibly change the outcome of this election. Instead, a judicial victory for the Trump campaign would lead to only two possible outcomes. And listen closely, folks. Here's what it is. Here's the big part. A delay so severe that Michigan loses its ability to appoint its electors in time to cast their votes. Or two, a process that gives credence to conspiracy theories that call into question the integrity of our elections and undermine our democracy. But it's the first one, because the brief goes on to say, this late file case now seems to have a sinister purpose. Yes, thank you. So close to using the word coup. We're almost there. Sinister purpose is not something you put in a legal. I was a lawyer. I don't ever wrote the word sinister purpose in a brief. We are getting to the point where finally someone is seeing this what it is. Our media is not equipped to use the term coup. They were not equipped to call Donald Trump a liar for 2 to 3 years. We all know this. So they can't believe that you have a man in the White House who's a fascist, who will stay in power under any circumstance. And so legally, there is no chance. Legally, he can't win. Here is right from the brief of the Secretary of State, a delay so severe that Michigan loses its ability to appoint its electors in time to cast their votes. This is the coup. This is Trump's endgame. And let me explain why. Because if he succeeds at this, Donald Trump will be the president for the next 4 years, and I think for the rest of his life. And that's the reality of the country we live in. You have to understand that. Here's the reality. How does Donald Trump become president? If a state like Michigan, that has Republican-controlled legislature, and other states that Joe Biden won that have Republican legislatures, like Wisconsin and Georgia and Arizona, if just enough of them say we can't certify the vote because there's too many lawsuits, there's too many unanswered questions, and every state's different. Some the governor can certify it on their own, and it seems like Michigan potentially that's the case, but that's not what their own Secretary of State is arguing. Their Secretary of State is acknowledging they're trying to delay this so Michigan loses its ability to appoint its electors in time to cast their votes. Here is the federal law. December 14th is the day the electors under federal law cast their votes. The next big day is January 6th. That's when the joint session of Congress goes through the votes. And whichever candidate gets 270, that's a majority of electoral votes, is president. But what happens if a handful of states that Joe Biden has won are not able to appoint its electors in time to cast their votes? Because there's two scenarios. One is the Republicans get there and they overturn the election and they put a slate that's all Trump. That's really far-fetched. The more I look at it, the harder that is. That's truly the coup in front of everyone. The easier choice for the Republicans is to say, we can't certify this election. There is just too many questions. Donald Trump has so many lawsuits in our state. He's raised so many valid questions. So I'm going to just say I can't vote to certify. I want to make it even scarier. Yesterday, 40 members of the Michigan State Assembly wrote a letter saying they're not going to certify these votes until they go through a long list of things that Trump wants. Now, they're going to need another 13 members of that body who are Republicans to get to a majority, but we're almost there. So what happens? I went a little tangent there. What happens if they hold up Michigan's votes? Let's assume they can do that. And Pennsylvania, Republican legislature there. And one or two other states. Well, the next day, January 6th, on the Electoral Count Act, joint session of the House and the Senate get together. And they tally up all the votes sent to them by the states of electors. And they go, well, we don't have any votes from these states, so nobody got the 270 votes. No one is present. What happens then? Under the 12th Amendment of our Constitution, the House of Representatives picks the next president. You might be thinking, well, that's good because we control the House. Not in this scenario. Under the Constitution, the 12th Amendment, each state delegation gets one vote. So it doesn't matter. We control the House. We have a lot of, in California and New York, we're overrepresented. Guess who controls 26 state legislatures in the new Congress? The Republicans. The Republicans pick Donald Trump as the next president. That's the end game. That's where they're going. That's what this is about. This is not a coup. This is not far-fetched. This is actual political strategy in a hardball way we've never thought would be possible. And if you're going to say, well, come on, are these Republicans actually not going to certify the election? Because actually not certifying the election is an easy choice. Putting in a slate that is pro-Trump, that's hard. Going, look, there are real legitimate questions. I can't vote. And that Michigan board yesterday was laying the groundwork for that. So I'm so glad they flipped. But still, the Michigan legislature, I mean, this is right in the brief filed hours ago, saying by the Secretary of State, saying the Trump campaign, a victory is the delay so severe Michigan loses its ability to appoint its electors in time to cast their votes. So Michigan gets no votes in the Electoral College on January 6th. On December 14th first, but then January 6th when it matters. This is working. The political path of Donald Trump is working. A new Reuters poll today. Over half of Republicans think Donald Trump rightfully won this election. Again, over half of Republicans believe Donald Trump rightfully won this election, not Joe Biden. That number is going to go up over the next month until December 14th when the states are going to have to make their decision. And what do you think they're going to do? They're going to pressure Republican state legislatures for the next month to not certify. They're going to pressure them. They're going to promise them, we'll raise more money for you. You're assembly person now. We'll raise money when you want to run for lieutenant governor or AG. Or we're going to primary if you don't do the right thing. Can they get enough Republicans to put their own careers and Donald Trump first over America? Well, 40 in Michigan already signed a letter saying they are. This is where this is heading. Let's be clear. And I'm so glad it's in the brief filed, and I'm so glad I checked out this brief. In fact, one of the legal experts said, I usually don't post briefs, but I had to do this one because it's stunning. And this is why. This is where we are. It's still, is this a long shot for Donald Trump? I wouldn't say it's a long shot. I would say it's somewhere between a medium shot to a long shot that Donald Trump's the next president if he can get enough legislatures to do this. Because that's what will happen. Because again, the 12th Amendment of the Constitution is very clear. If nobody gets a 270 on January 6th, then the House chooses the next president, and it's by each delegation, each state gets one vote. And they control 26, and they're control 26 come January 3rd when the new Congress is sworn in. So at least 26. They might have more. They'll pick Donald Trump. And the Senate picks the vice president, and they, of course, will pick Mike Pence. That's where we stand. That's where this is going. So my question to you, without being Alex Jones, because this is not a crazy conspiracy, and I am so, again, glad that the brief filed today, just hours ago, by Jocelyn Benson, the Secretary of State of Michigan, and the Michigan canvassers of Wayne County, along with the DNC and the Michigan Democratic Party, and the NAACP is an intervener in this case as well, because they're trying to disenfranchise hundreds of thousands of black votes because the GOP doesn't want black people to vote. I mean, it's not a coincidence they're attacking Atlanta, it's Detroit, it's Philadelphia. Come on. They're not even pretending. They're trying to disenfranchise black voters. That's what this whole game is about. So what do we do? What do we do? And if coup's not the right word, then what's the right word to be taken seriously? Because I can't get the article written. I'm telling you. And if I go on TV and say the word coup, I probably don't get booked again because I'm a crazy person. So maybe there's a different word that's better. And what do we do to call attention to this plan? Their plan is very clear. Donald Trump's plan is not to have the extreme remedy of getting the GOP legislatures to actually throw out the Biden supporters and put a Trump slate. It's literally to do nothing. To say we can't certify because there's too much fraud. That's what they're trying to do. And they might succeed. I've got to be honest with you. The GOP is not about America first. They're a fascist party. And again, fascism is simply a means to hold power. That's not consistent with democracy. I should add that last part. That's where we are. Not trying to scare you. I always say this. I do this not to scare, but to make us aware. So what's our approach? We still have time to fight this. What do we do? I want to hear from you. 866-997-4748. Be right back after this quick break on the Dean Obeidallah Show with you as my guest.